try and explain the family tree of what is in essence a cosmic ball of black goo that reproduces asexually. That should be easy, right? Welcome back, Nerd Squad. We're going to be doing something a little different today, so if you like it, be sure to shout it out down in the comments and spread the word. Especially, I ask you to do that because I had a lot of fun writing this for you today, so yeah. Today we won't be counting, so sorry about that count, but we will be explaining or trying to explain the bizarre cosmic gooiness that is the Venom family tree. Follow me as we dive deep into the Venom verse. Where should we start? Okay, how about at the beginning, where all of this madness started with Venom. When this symbiote first appeared in the comics, it was believed and actually advertised as being simply a new look for Spider-Man's Peter Parker. However, fans didn't really like his new threads so much, and so the new costume was transformed into a new character, becoming Venom, a symbiotic alien made of black goo that came from outer space. Namely, as we'd learn later, from a planet named Clintar. We would learn that Venom had actually been cast out from the hive mind, the collective of Clintar symbiote minds, which connected them all. But where did Venom come from? Other than Clintar, I mean, who made Venom? Well, that is actually believed to have been Null, the one who also made the first symbiote, known sometimes as the All Black, Venom's oldest sibling. Daddy Null isn't just the father of Venom, you see. He is the father of pretty much all symbiotes that exist on Clintar, having created the planet and the race known as the God of Symbiotes himself, and as an eldritch god of darkness. Yeah, Null really old. But Null wouldn't just be a father to these many symbiotes. Honestly, Venom has more siblings than I have time to mention them all individually in this video, and many of them still remain unnamed in the comics as well. But trust me, they are all out there and there are a lot of them. Null can also be considered at this point a grandfather and even a great-grandfather when it comes to the Venom family tree, because after Venom came to Earth, it also ended up getting somewhat busy with itself, making other little baby symbiotes. That's what happens when you reproduce asexually. You don't get busy with other people, you just make babies. Venom and other symbiotes of Clintar besides are asexual when it comes to their reproduction, meaning that they don't need a mate to, well, mate. Although it should be noted that it wasn't until after Venom connected with his host, his, you could say, soulmate, Eddie Brock, the Venom would produce offspring. Do with that information what you will. Scientifically, however, symbiotes typically only ever give birth to one offspring, but Venom is a special case. It had symbiotic babies extracted from it at one point against its will, which challenged the normal reproductive symbiote status quo. So the Venom symbiote kinda breaks the mold when it comes to the limits of symbiote reproduction, at least as we know it to exist in the rest of the universe. Regardless of whether or not being with Eddie had any impact on the time when Venom reproduced, Eddie is still a very important figure in Venom's life and family tree, often being regarded as one of the symbiote's closest allies and basically Venom's life partner. Initially, when Venom came to Earth, it merged with Spider-Man, but was rejected by the hero. Upset and hurt by the rejection, Venom chose to bond with Eddie Brock, who also had his own reasons for hating Spider-Man. The two bonded over their hatred of the hero, and it often was what kept them together, at least initially. Venom has other hosts, but if we have time, we'll try to touch on that later. For now, let's talk about all of Venom's kids. The first and eldest symbiote among Venom's offspring would be Carnage. Carnage was actually born during a prison breakout. Eddie, you see, was locked away and was cellmates with notorious serial killer Cletus Cassidy. Cletus and Eddie did not get along, and in some versions of the story, Venom arrived right in time to save Eddie, as Cletus had planned to murder him in his cell. That's how much the two did not get along. Although to be fair to Eddie, Cletus really likes murdering people. So regardless of if they got along, a murder attempt would have probably been inevitable. Carnage was born as Venom broke Eddie out and the two escaped, which also in turn freed Cletus, who had now merged with Carnage. The symbiote bonded to Cletus's blood, which some have explained as happening due to it being newborn, and of course due to Cletus having a cut on his hand, where Carnage could enter through. As Carnage, the two bonded would prove to be even stronger than Venom, and would require Venom and Spider-Man to team up in order to take on Carnage during the Maximum Carnage crossover event. Which is pretty crazy because, you know, their enemies. Venom was supposed to be a bad guy. Although symbiotes usually only produce a single offspring, Venom was forced into producing more after they were kidnapped by the Life Foundation, which, sounds like it would be a lovely scientific organization based on the name of it, but really, it isn't. The Life Foundation is usually more concerned with the safety of the wealthy elite than advancements or defenses to protect all life, as their name would or should imply. They managed to capture Venom and forcibly harvest 5 new children from it, 5 seeds if you will, who would become known as Phage, Lasher, Riot, Agony, and Scream, all of them symbiotes. The first 4 in particular would become quite close during the time with the Life Foundation, possibly because Venom was under duress while spawning these new offspring. These 5 children were not nearly as strong as Carnage was. As a result, Phage, Lasher, Riot, and Agony became used to merging together to create the hybrid symbiote. This was of course when they weren't busy with their own individual hosts. Lasher would actually be bonded to a dog at one point, which would then have private military personnel working in tandem with the symbiote bonded doggo. So that person that had a symbiote was like, my symbiote's a dog. And the other symbiotes were each bonded to private military personnel hired by the Life Foundation initially. Scream is more often associated with doing their own thing. The Scream symbiote was bonded initially with the schizophrenic Donna Diego, a Life Foundation security guard codenamed Strike Agent 4. Venom's final child, thus far anyways, I guess we'll see if Venom has any more children, is Sleeper. Sleeper is also a unique symbiote, and although it's not as powerful as Carnage, is seemingly more powerful than the Life Foundation symbiotes. It's kind of somewhere in the middle, I'd say. Sleeper was born with the assistance of Eddie Brock, who did his best to help the Venom symbiote through labor after discovering that the symbiote was expecting. This is probably the closest the two have ever gotten in terms of like a semi-shared pregnancy with each other. Initially, Venom hid the fact that they were expecting from Eddie, only hinting at the possibility, but eventually all was revealed and Venom confessed that they had been scared to actually share that information with their host. Eddie, however, stood by Venom and attempted to stay bonded to the symbiote while it gave birth to help give it strength. Sleeper was initially believed to have died while being born, but was later revealed to be alive and well, an overall healthy small little bundle of goo. Sleeper was also delivered with the help of Alchemex and would end up there to be studied, as was permitted by Eddie Brock and the Venom symbiote, so long as the research being conducted on their baby was non-invasive. Venom would come to visit Sleeper regularly and was wary of the symbiote bonding with a host too early, as they were basically worried about the potential for Sleeper to be corrupted by a host, wanting to avoid the potential evil that Carnage had become. Which I get it, if you had your first child and they were like literally the worst of the worst, I feel like every time you had kids thereafter you'd be like, oh, hopefully this one isn't like an evil murderer. Goodness. Someone who would also become good friends with Sleeper was Dylan Brock, who is, yes, the son of Eddie Brock and his ex Anne Wang, the secret son of the pair. Apparently, when Dylan was conceived, Eddie and Anne both had been bonded to the Venom symbiote at the same time, and because of that it was believed that Venom was also in part a genetic donor to Dylan's creation and birth. Anne herself was also surprised to find herself pregnant with Dylan after the experience of becoming she-Venom, while Eddie was also still bonded to the symbiote. So this wasn't necessarily a normal pregnancy for Anne either. Dylan is actually the current host of Venom, who has been tasked with looking after Dylan and keeping an eye on him during his father's absences. It wasn't until recently that Eddie and Venom learned of the existence of Dylan and how he was Eddie's, Anne's, and in a way, Venom's son. But the two together have wholly embraced the concept of fatherhood as they accepted Dylan into their family tree, working together to keep him safe, even when he was being hunted down during the Absolute Carnage event by a resurrected Carnage who sought to revive Null by absorbing the codices within the spines of all the former symbiote hosts on Earth, which was a pretty crazy event, but fortunately Dylan made it through. Yay! But how many of Venom's kids have kids? Is Venom a granddad? In the case of Carnage, yes, they are. Carnage has multiple children, so it seems father like son in terms of, breaking the mold on symbiote reproduction here. Carnage's first offspring is Toxin, who is widely regarded to be one of the most powerful symbiotes of all time, second only maybe to someone like Null or perhaps maybe Anti-Venom. I personally think Anti-Venom is also up there. Initially, both Carnage and Venom teamed up to hunt down Toxin, as both were concerned by the amount of power Toxin would wield. Fortunately, Black Cat and Spider-Man teamed up and protected Toxin, allowing the newborn symbiote to escape its relatives. Aside from Toxin, Carnage also gave birth to Scorn as a result of being experimented on in the process of using the symbiote and technology to create hybrid prosthetics. As such, Scorn is also part tech, kinda like a cyborg symbiote if you will. Then there are the symbiotes born from Carnage's own experiments with the Darkhold, one of which is Ray's, the other of which was bonded to Jubilila Van Scotter, and Unnamed, both of which are now believed to be deceased. The symbiotes, of course, not necessarily their hosts. They were seemingly used up in a fight against Chthon and Carnage, and so they're no longer around. I think Scorn at this point also might be gone. And we thought Toxin was gone, but I'm pretty sure Toxin's alive? Yeah, a lot of death. Doesn't go well if you're a Carnage offspring. Aside from children, grandchildren, parent, and main host, Venom has also had a slew of other influential hosts as well as genetic recipients and clones over the years. Here's a brief list of some of the most influential members of that extended part of their family, but you know, not all of them because I'm running out of time here. Cloned from a piece of Venom's tongue, we have Mania or Maniac, mutated clone Anti-Venom, dubbed the original host Kree Telkar. Other than Eddie Brock, possibly one of the best heroic hosts we've seen for Venom, Flash Thompson, aka Agent Venom, currently Agent Anti-Venom because bonded with Anti-Venom. Widely proclaimed the worst and most cruel host, Lee Price, famed host of Carnage who also is bonded with Venom, Cletus Cassidy, and Superior Spider-Man / Venom, aka Freaky Friday Otto Octavius in Peter Parker's body with the Venom symbiote. And that's just some. Would you like an extended family tree for Venom where we cover hosts and clones as related to Venom and their offspring? What other family trees would you like to see us climb around and attempt to explain? Who is your favorite member of the Venom family tree? Let us know in the comments below. This has been Top 10 Nerd and I'm your host Amanda McKnight. I'll see you in a future video, but until then, you stay nerdy, YouTube.